So last week I went to see Joker and it was pretty good. I thought the cinematography and editing were pretty great. The score was fantastic and Phoenix was excellent in the role. But the writing, the dialogue in particular, that was a bit weak at times. The one thing I wasn't a fan of was the direction it went towards the end. I was struggling to imagine this guy becoming anything resembling the Joker of the comics. But as a standalone, I thought it worked pretty well for what it was. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. More than whether I think it's good, what I think makes this movie significant is that other people think it's good. And they do. It's got an 89% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and as of my recording this, has hit $737 million at the box office already, on its way to becoming the highest earning R-rated movie of all time. And what I wanted to talk about today is what I think this could mean for popular cinema going forward, because I think the Joker sits in a pretty unique position, and hopefully, might be a sign of things to come. The cinema landscape today is quite different now to how it's been at pretty much any point in history. The internet's been flooded lately with celebrities criticizing and sometimes defending Marvel movies. This started with Martin Scorsese complaining that Marvel movies are more like theme park rides than real cinema, leading to plenty of hilarious memes on the subject. Ignoring the semantics of the definition of cinema and focusing on the pragmatics of his argument, I think the point being made here about Marvel movies, but also our blockbuster situation more generally, is that the kind of movies that dominate our culture today are products first, stories second. The development starts with a recognized property, character, brand, actor, and then they build a story around it to cater to people's infatuation with this existing thing, rather than the idea and the storytelling potential being the catalyst for a brand to be built around. And since the idea is to be marketable to as many people as humanly possible, studios are trying to be as safe as possible, telling the most conventional stories they can, avoiding anything against the grain or challenging to a viewer, anything too divergent from the norm, lest someone be put off by something that they see. This is particularly true in the international market, where films do better for catering to the whims of everyone, and especially the powerhouse market of China, avoiding anything too idiosyncratic or complex that might not translate so well. It's not that this is exactly something new. Studios have always capitalized on nostalgia and brand recognition to drive sales of media, and movies have always been a commercial product for studios. But I don't think it's ever quite been to the extent that it is now, and I think the international market is a big part of that. Of all the additions to this silly debate, in which we view celebrities' opinions as for some reason the most important thing in the world, I think that Jennifer Aniston did make a good point. It isn't that unconventional movies aren't around anymore. Low-budget filmmaking is about as creative and personal as it's ever been, but what has mostly disappeared from our screens is the mid-budget movie. The polished, widely released film in the mid-tens of millions, under 100 million. The market for these films has never been lower. As blockbusters have become such incredible hype machines, it has become far safer for studios to bank all their money on a few tentpoles, avoiding anything that might fail to recoup its budget being drowned out by the massive sea of brand-recognized action-adventure films. Alright, so what does this all mean when discussing Joker? Well, for starters, despite being based on a comic character, Joker is a mid-budget movie. Made for $55 million and earning already $750 million without even opening in China, Joker stands as proof that mid-budget movies do have the potential to be successful, that you don't need to spend over $100 million for a gamble to be worth it. And more importantly, I think it shows that movies can be successful with audiences while breaking the conventional movie mold. Joker doesn't have a hero, it doesn't have a hero's journey. It's not exactly groundbreaking for those who are more intimately familiar with diverse forms of cinema, but showing a brutal in-depth character study like this is so far out of the norm for mainstream cinema of the 2010s. The sad caveat to all of this is that we still know that the main reason such a movie was able to reach this sort of success is through brand recognition. Audiences love the Joker. He's been one of the biggest draw characters in history, being a huge hit ever since the early Batman comics. He's deeply ingrained in our cultural memory. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that this movie started off as a different story and was adapted to the Joker origin in order to make it viable, though I don't think that's the most likely possibility either. Now I know that might sound pessimistic, but regardless of why it was made, something this big does have the power to start a trend.
It's not about money, it's about sending a message.
Millions of people who went to see Joker probably only did it because they recognized his name. People who would normally never look beyond superhero and action movies for their cinematic experiences. But coming out, I think it's entirely possible that they might develop a whole new perspective. Dark, serious, non-traditional movies can be good. In fact, they can be amazing. And they can be worth paying to go see on the big screen. Many who saw the film may hear how it was inspired by the work of Martin Scorsese, including the king of comedy and Taxi Driver. They might decide to check these movies out. They might hear about Scorsese's new film, The Irishman, and think, well, if I like Joker, maybe I could like this new movie that's by the same guy whose work inspired it. Maybe this all sounds a little rosy, and maybe it is. Maybe most people who watched it will still never want to venture beyond superhero movies. But even then, at least they'll probably be open to looking for something different in superhero movies. I don't know though. Back in the 60s and 70s, auteurs ran Hollywood. Movies of all genres, tones, styles and concepts got made by the bucket load and at all levels of budget, and people saw them by the bucket load. Jaws and Star Wars set the path towards commercialism, and things like the Chinese market, increasing theatre prices, streaming services and home media have cemented audiences into a minimal risk state of mind, not wanting to break out of the mold of what they're exposed to and told is worth their money. I won't deny it's a very complex and unprecedented situation now. But if there's one thing history tells us, it's that with enough impetus, cultural mindsets can change. If people could get excited for all kinds of movies once, I don't see any reason why it couldn't happen again. And so that's a legacy that I hope Joker leaves on the future of cinema. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. And why not check out some of the other video essays I've made? You can find the playlist for them, as well as the playlist for the films that I've made, on the main page of my channel. Thanks again, and see you later.